As soon as my husband left, my brother-in-law looked at me with a strange expression. He handed me a hotel keycard and said, "Stay here tonight, do not go home, or you will lose your life." I was suspicious but followed his advice, and I was absolutely stunned by what happened next. Dinner in this massive Long Island estate was always as heavy as lead. For almost a year now, I could not even remember the taste of the food. The sharp clinking of silverware against fine-bone china was the only sound breaking the suffocating silence. I kept my head down, trying to swallow the bland meal, feeling the weight of their stares pressing down on me. Eleanor, my mother-in-law, suddenly slammed her fork onto the table. The loud noise made me jump. She sneered, her familiar shrill voice echoing in the dining room. "Why is this roast so salty? Who could possibly swallow this? You cannot even cook a decent dinner. You truly are just a useless, small-town nobody." I clenched my fists under the table, my nails digging deep into my skin. I was used to this. I looked up, forcing a smile. "I am sorry. Let me go heat up something else for you." My husband, Tom, the man I had once loved so deeply, did not even look up from his glowing smartphone screen. He waved his hand dismissively, his voice irritated. "Oh, let it go, Mom, just eat, I am exhausted." He kept scrolling, occasionally smirking at whatever was on his screen. It was a smile he had not given me in a very long time. His world now consisted of numbers, real estate developments, endless meetings, and secrets I was never allowed to touch. But the person who frightened me the most was Hunter, my brother-in-law. He sat across from me, quietly eating his meal. Hunter had just gotten out of federal prison 3 months ago. The family claimed it was just for a bar fight, but no one ever dared to share the details. Since Hunter returned, the house had grown even darker. He barely spoke to anyone, moving around like a silent shadow. And his eyes, the way Hunter looked at me, it was not the way a man looks at a woman, nor was it mere curiosity. It was a cold, calculating glare. It felt as though I were a piece of property being appraised, or prey being stalked. Whenever Hunter looked at me, a chill ran down my spine. I had mentioned it to Tom once, but he just brushed it off, saying I was being ridiculous. He said Hunter just got out of prison and was a bit eccentric, telling me to act more like a proper sister-in-law. Act proper? How was I supposed to act when I was terrified of my own brother-in-law? Tom suddenly stood up, hastily grabbing his suit jacket. "I am full. I have an urgent meeting with Rick. He is a crucial partner, so I probably will not be home tonight. You and Mom get some rest." He rattled this off and marched straight to the front door, leaving me with that familiar sense of abandonment. Rick was Tom's biggest business partner, the man who had helped Tom's construction firm skyrocket over the past 2 years. But I had never been allowed to meet this man. Seeing Tom leave, Eleanor stood up as well, patting her perfectly styled hair. "I am going to the country club for a charity gala. Clean this place up. Do not leave it looking like a pigsty." The heavy mahogany front door slammed shut. The sprawling mansion suddenly sank into a terrifying silence. Only Hunter and I were left in the dining room. That wolf-like stare was once again fixed on me. I hurriedly gathered the plates and practically ran to the kitchen sink, turning the water on full blast. The loud rushing of the water was the only flimsy wall I could build to separate myself from him. I wanted to finish cleaning quickly so I could sprint to my bedroom and lock the door. I could not stand this atmosphere for another second. I could feel that Hunter had not left the dining area. He was standing there, watching me. I was trying to stack the dishes when a towering shadow suddenly blocked the kitchen doorway. I jumped, spinning around. It was Hunter. How long had he been standing there? I took a terrified step back, my trembling hands losing their grip on an expensive porcelain plate. A deafening crash echoed as the plate shattered into pieces on the tile floor. Eleanor yelled from the hallway, her voice sharper than the breaking glass, calling me a useless klutz who breaks everything. Before I could even compose myself, I heard the sharp clicking of her heels heading to the door. "I am leaving," she announced. "Try not to destroy the house while I am gone." The front door slammed shut one more time. Now the house was truly empty, except for the two of us. I took a deep breath, trying to summon some courage, but my voice still trembled. "What do you want?" Hunter did not answer right away. He stepped into the kitchen, walking right past me, but his eyes were not on my face. They were locked on my neck. The custom diamond and sapphire necklace Tom had given me for our 5th anniversary suddenly felt freezing cold against my skin. My breath caught in my throat. Hunter stood barely an arm's length away. I could smell the faint scent of tobacco on his clothes. He stared at the necklace and suddenly gave a cynical smirk. "Beautiful, isn't it? Cost 150 grand, right?" I froze, my entire body stiffening. No one in this family knew the real value of this piece. When Tom gave it to me, he claimed it was just a small token of appreciation. How could Hunter, a guy fresh out of prison, know the exact dollar amount? "How do you know that?" I stammered. Hunter's smirk vanished, replaced by a terrifying dark intensity. He raised his gaze, looking straight into my eyes, cold to the bone. I do not just know the price, I know its previous owner. He stepped closer, emphasizing every single word. Sister-in-law, Tom is using you as collateral. Collateral for what? My ears started ringing, my mind going completely blank. That word was sharp and freezing, piercing straight into my brain. I looked at Hunter, desperately searching for a hint of a joke on his rugged, shadowed face. But there was none. His eyes were deep, quiet, and held something dark that I could not name. I did not understand what he was talking about, but a woman's intuition told me this was not a prank. I backed up until my spine hit the cold granite countertop. What nonsense are you talking about? What are you trying to pull? You want money, is that it? That was the only logical thought my brain could produce. Hunter had just gotten out of prison, so he must need cash. Maybe he was spinning some wild tale to extort me or Tom. But knowing the exact value of the necklace proved this was not just a random lie. My throat went dry. I wanted to scream, to call Tom back, to call anyone. Just as my panic peaked, I heard the clicking of Eleanor's heels returning to the foyer. She shouted from the hall, her tone as grandiose as her evening gown. I am leaving. Lock the doors. I heard her muttering complaints as she grabbed the doorknob. Then the heavy front door slammed with absolute finality. That sound felt like a death sentence, sealing the mansion shut. My heart pounded furiously. Now, in this massive estate, it really was just me and Hunter. The air grew thick and I could barely breathe. I looked at Hunter, who was still blocking the kitchen exit. He let out a long breath, as if he had just dropped a heavy burden. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a small plastic object, and tossed it toward me. The cold keycard slid across the kitchen tile, stopping right at my feet. I looked down. It was a hotel room key. Hunter looked at me, his eyes no longer scrutinizing but filled with exhaustion and urgency. The Grand Plaza Hotel, room 1818. Stay there tonight. Do not come home, or you will lose your life. I trembled, too afraid to pick it up. What is this? Another trap? Are you trying to lure me to a hotel? What are you up to, Hunter? I will tell Tom about this. I tried using Tom's name to threaten him. Hunter gave a cynical laugh, one that was even more terrifying than his silence. Tell him? Do you honestly think you can reach him? Or that he would even come to save you? He turned around and walked out of the kitchen, but stopped at the doorway. Without looking back, he spoke in a low, gravelly voice. I am saving you because you are the only person in this house who never treated me like garbage. When I first got back, you were the only one who handed me a decent plate of food instead of looking at me with pure disgust. I was stunned. I remembered that day. But it had just been an unconscious gesture, a baseline level of human pity. Hunter did not give me a chance to respond. Decide quickly. By midnight, this house will no longer be your home. With that, he walked straight to his bedroom at the end of the hall and slammed the door shut. The loud thud echoed, leaving me entirely alone. I stood frozen in the middle of the cold kitchen, the room 1818 keycard resting by my feet. It took me a long time before I dared to move. The only sound left was the humming of the refrigerator, a normal, everyday noise that somehow felt sinister tonight. The house was too quiet. The silence following the slam of Hunter's door was even scarier than his threat. Shaking, I bent down and picked up the keycard. It was hard plastic and freezing to the touch. The Grand Plaza Hotel, room 1818. My mind spun with a chaotic mess of theories. This had to be a trap. Hunter was an ex-con. How could he possibly have a keycard to a luxury, five-star hotel downtown? Maybe he was working with someone, luring me out to rob me of the necklace, or worse. I did not dare finish that thought. I had read too many news stories about hotel murders. But what if he was telling the truth? Do not come home, or you will lose your life. His words were so clear. He said this house would no longer be my home. That meant the danger was here, right inside this mansion, not at the hotel. So what was the danger? Was it Hunter? Was he giving me the key to trick me out of my room so he could break in? Or was the danger something else entirely? Something even Hunter was afraid of? I bolted out of the kitchen, running straight to my bedroom. I locked the door and slid down to the floor, leaning against the thick wooden frame, but I did not feel any safer. I have to call Tom. He is my husband, he has to protect me. My hands shook as I dialed his number. The subscriber you have dialed is currently unavailable. The automated, emotionless voice filled my ear. I hung up and tried again. Same message. My heart started racing. Why is his phone off? He said he was at an important meeting with Rick. Since when do people turn off their phones during business meetings? Maybe his battery died. I tried to cling to that excuse. Shivering, I dialed my mother-in-law. It rang once before going straight to voicemail. Right, she was at a loud gala. She would not hear her phone. I looked around the room in absolute despair. I was completely alone. The wall clock read 9 o'clock. All of this had happened in the span of a single hour, but it felt like a century had passed. I stared at the keycard in my hand. The fear of Hunter and the fear of an invisible, looming danger tore at me. Do I stay here, locked in my room, and wait? Wait for what? Wait for Tom, who said he might not come back. Wait for Hunter to break the door down? The door looked sturdy, but I doubted it could stop a strong, desperate man. If I went to the Grand Plaza, it was a public place. There would be a front desk, security, and cameras everywhere. If Hunter wanted to hurt me, would he dare do it there? Compared to staying in this massive, empty house with just the two of us, a public hotel actually seemed safer. Logic whispered that Hunter did not seem to be joking. Collateral, previous owner, lose your life. Those were not words used for simple extortion. It was a warning. This house was the real danger. I made my decision. I could not stay here. I had to leave. But I could not just vanish. If Tom or Eleanor came back early and saw I was gone, they would ask Hunter. What would he say? I needed a solid excuse, a safe cover story. I immediately thought of Hannah, my best friend. I dialed her number, trying to steady my breathing, but my voice still betrayed my panic. Hannah picked up almost instantly. Valerie? Calling me this late? Miss me already? Hearing her cheerful voice, I suddenly burst into tears. Half of it was acting, but the other half was the genuine fear and misery I had been bottling up for years. Hannah, I sobbed. On the other end, Hannah immediately panicked. Oh my God, Val, what is wrong? Did Tom hurt you? No, I managed to say through my hiccups. I had a huge fight with Tom and Eleanor. I cannot take it anymore. Can I please come crash at your place tonight? The lie slipped out smoothly because it was built on 90% of the truth of my daily life. Hannah did not doubt it for a second. Ugh, the wicked witch strikes again. I told you so. Shh, stop crying. Just come over right now. I am at the same Brooklyn apartment. She hung up. I let out a sigh of relief. At least I had a perfect alibi. If anyone asked, I was at Hannah's place. I rushed to my closet, too afraid to turn on the main lights, relying only on the dim glow of my bedside lamp. I could not drag a rolling suitcase. The noise would alert Hunter. I grabbed a small canvas duffel bag instead. I threw in a few sets of clothes, underwear, my wallet, and my ID. My eyes landed on the jewelry box on the vanity, the $150,000 necklace. Hunter said it was collateral. If the danger was truly linked to it, should I leave it or take it? If I left it, would they do something to me? If I took it, I would definitely become a target. With no time left to debate, I snatched the necklace, feeling the cold stones in my palm, and shoved it deep into a hidden pocket of the duffel bag. I zipped it up and threw the strap over my shoulder. I took a deep breath and unlocked my bedroom door. The hallway was pitch black and terrifyingly quiet. I crept barefoot across the cold hardwood floor, trying to make zero noise. Hunter's door at the end of the hall remained tightly shut. I had no idea if he was asleep or standing right behind the wood, listening to me. I made it down the stairs to the living room, still refusing to touch the light switches. Pale moonlight filtered through the windows, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. I reached the front door and with shaking hands, turned the deadbolt. The soft click echoed like a gunshot in the silent house. I held my breath and listened. Nothing moved upstairs. I turned the handle, pulled the door open just enough to slip through, and closed it gently behind me. The moment I cleared the estate gates, I ran like I was fleeing for my life. I reached the main avenue and flagged down a passing taxi. Take me to Brooklyn, I told the driver, giving him Hannah's neighborhood. The car started moving, carrying me away from the dark mansion. I leaned my head against the cold glass, still panting. I was safe. But was I really? Tom knew where Hannah lived. If Tom was involved in this nightmare, he would look for me there. I stared at the keycard in my hand. Room 1818. Hunter had provided a very specific destination. It was not random. He had prepared it. Maybe that was the only truly safe place. Halfway to Brooklyn, I suddenly spoke up. Driver, please turn around. Take me to the Grand Plaza Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. The cab driver checked his rearview mirror, looking at me strangely. A frantic woman with a duffel bag, changing her destination from a normal residential borough to one of the most expensive five-star hotels in the city at 10 o'clock at night. But he did not ask questions. He just merged into the opposite lane. The Grand Plaza towered before me, brilliantly illuminated and luxurious. The massive skyscraper glowed, crystal chandeliers radiating light through the grand lobby windows, making it look like daytime. Luxury town cars and limousines were lined up at the entrance. I paid the fare, took a deep breath, tried to compose myself, and walked through the revolving glass doors. The atmosphere inside was a different world. The scent of expensive essential oils filled the air, soft piano music played in the background, and the polished marble floors reflected my image. I looked entirely out of place, a disheveled woman clutching a cheap duffel bag, looking pathetic. I forced my head up, ignoring the glances from a few guests in designer clothes, and marched straight to the elevators. Fortunately, I already had the key card, so I did not need to visit the front desk. I stepped into the elevator alone. The mirrored walls reflected my pale, terrified face. I stared at the digital display as the numbers climbed. Floor 18. Ding. The doors opened to a hallway covered in plush carpeting so thick it absorbed all sound. I felt like I was walking on clouds. Nothing felt real. I found room 1818 at the very end of the hall, an incredibly private corner. I tapped the card against the sensor. A soft beep sounded, and a green light flashed. I pushed the door open, stepped inside, and instantly slammed it shut, throwing the deadbolt and latching the security chain. I leaned heavily against the door, gasping for air. Once my heart rate finally slowed down, I dared to turn and look at the room. I was paralyzed. This was not a standard hotel room. It was a massive presidential suite. It was larger than my parents' entire house back in my hometown. The lavish living area featured a cream-colored leather sectional, a wet bar, and massive floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the New York City skyline. The sheer luxury did not comfort me. It only intensified my terror. Where did Hunter get the money to book a room like this? An ex-con? Or maybe Hunter did not book this room. Maybe this was Rick's room, or Tom's, and Hunter had sent me here to deliver me right into their hands. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I dropped the duffel bag and tore through the suite like a maniac, searching everywhere. I ripped the blankets off the king-sized bed. I threw open the walk-in closet doors, checking every corner. I ran into the marble bathroom and yanked the shower curtain back. Nobody was there. I started looking for hidden cameras. I got on my hands and knees, shining my phone's flashlight under the bed, behind the huge TV, and into the light fixtures. I found no red blinking dots. The room appeared safe, but I refused to trust it. I dragged a heavy armchair over and wedged it tightly against the front door. Even with all the locks engaged, I did not dare turn on the main lights. I only switched on a single dim bedside lamp. I refused to sit on the bed or take off my jacket. I curled up on the furthest corner of the sofa facing the door, clutching my duffel bag tightly against my chest. The $150,000 necklace, likely the root of this entire nightmare, sat quietly inside it. I stared out the window. The city skyline was stunning, millions of lights twinkling like crushed diamonds. Out there, people were laughing, eating dinner, dancing, while I was trapped in this gilded cage, terrified, entirely alone, waiting for some unknown fate. Had I just escaped a trap, or had I walked right into a far more elaborate one? The luxurious silence of room 1818 made my anxiety curdle into something solid. The glittering lights outside felt like shattered fragments of the happy dream I once believed in. How did my life end up like this? I used to have romance, a family, a husband I thought was my whole world. The Tom from years ago was not the irritable, phone-obsessed stranger from tonight. The old Tom was a guy from a working-class town full of ambition and warmth. He had no money, but he had drive. I remembered the nights he worked late at construction sites, driving miles through pouring rain just to bring me hot coffee. He used to say, "Drink this so you stay warm. I do not have much, but I have my heart." I had believed in that heart. I had defied my parents, who warned me that he was too poor and too blindly ambitious to ever make me happy. I fought the whole world to be with him. And for the first year of our marriage, we truly were happy. When did everything change? Probably when his construction firm started landing massive contracts. When he partnered with Rick, a man I was never allowed to meet, yet whose name dictated our lives. Tom started coming home later, smelling strongly of expensive scotch, and his smiles grew rare. Then the real tragedy struck when Eleanor moved in. She claimed she wanted to take care of her son, but her real purpose was to monitor and torment me. She was a bitter woman who was used to being treated like royalty. She viewed me, a regular girl with no pedigree, as a thorn in her side. She criticized everything, from the way I arranged flowers to how I seasoned the food, and especially the fact that I had not yet given her a grandson. "You truly are just a useless, small-town girl who cannot even get pregnant." She repeated that line at almost every dinner, cutting into my heart like a serrated knife. The worst part was that Tom never defended me. He always sided with his mother. Whenever I broke down in tears, he just brushed it off, telling me to suck it up. He would say, "She is my only mother. You are the daughter-in-law. Just show some respect." He did not understand, or perhaps chose not to understand, that his silence hurt me far more than her insults ever could. My love for him had slowly died during those suffocating dinners, those long, lonely nights waiting for him, and the absolute isolation inside my own home. I looked around the ultra-luxury suite. It was just another gilded cage, exactly like the mansion. Beautiful, expensive, but freezing cold and devoid of any humanity. I realized I had been alone for a very long time, even when Tom was sleeping right next to me. Our marriage had been teetering on the edge of a cliff for years, and Hunter's warning tonight was just the gust of wind that pushed it into the abyss. I sat absolutely still on the sofa, watching the clock. 11. Midnight. I did not know what I was waiting for. Hunter? Rick? Tom? Or a group of armed thugs kicking the door in? The initial adrenaline wore off, leaving me completely drained. I was so exhausted by this marriage, tired of trying, tired of enduring. At nearly 1 in the morning, my eyes were heavy when the phone inside my bag suddenly vibrated. The buzzing sound in the dead quiet room echoed like gunfire, making my heart leap into my throat. I frantically grabbed the phone. It was Tom. Why is he calling me at this hour? He said he was not coming home, and he never called me during his late-night business meetings. Did he find out what happened? Did Hunter tell him, or was this part of the setup? 1,000 questions exploded in my brain. I took a deep breath, forced my voice to steady, and hit answer. Hello? I rasped. Silence hung on the line for a few seconds before a slurred, drunken voice mumbled through the speaker. Val, where are you? It was Tom, clearly wasted. I felt a tiny fraction of relief, but stayed on high alert. He continued, sounding furious. Mom called me. She said you are not home. Where the hell did you run off to at this hour? So Eleanor had gotten home from the gala, realized I was gone, and called Tom. Thank God I had prepared an alibi. I immediately slipped into character, letting my voice sound choked and tearful, just like when I called Hannah. I am at Hannah's place. I could not take it anymore. I am so sick of that house. Your mom. She started yelling at me again. I genuinely thought Tom would ask if I was okay, or at least offer fake comfort, but he didn't. He snapped, his voice reeking of entitlement and annoyance. You have too much free time. Stop making a huge deal out of nothing. Get your ass home right now. Do not bother Hannah in the middle of the night. I was stunned. Even when I told him I had fled to my best friend's house in distress, he offered no concern for my safety or my feelings. All he cared about was his own ego and the fact that I was creating drama. Before I could even respond, Tom added, groaning, I am entertaining clients, I am exhausted, stop causing problems, just go home. Then he hung up. The harsh beep of the disconnected call felt incredibly cold. I gripped the phone, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The tears I had been fighting back finally spilled over. But they were not tears of fear. They were tears of utter disappointment and profound despair. He did not care how I felt. He did not care where I was or if I was safe. He only issued orders. In that exact second, whatever lingering affection or hope I had left for that man shattered into a million pieces. Tom was no longer my Tom. He had become a vicious, cold, and cruel stranger. However, this phone call inadvertently confirmed one thing. My alibi worked perfectly, and Tom had absolutely no idea about the lethal danger Hunter had warned me about. So where was the danger coming from? Tom's call acted like a bucket of ice water, extinguishing whatever emotions I had left. I was no longer afraid, and I no longer had hope. I just felt empty. I sat on the sofa, staring out the window, watching the city lights slowly flicker out. The sky shifted from pitch black to a murky gray, then a faint glow appeared on the horizon. I had stayed awake all night. Nothing happened. No one knocked on the door of room 1818, no threatening phone calls, no assassins, no kidnappers, just me and my isolation in a wildly expensive hotel suite. When the first rays of morning sunlight hit the room, melting away the nighttime chill, I finally moved. My body was stiff and sore. The sheer terror of last night suddenly felt absolutely ridiculous in the daylight. I started to feel incredibly foolish. What the hell had I done? I had let myself get spooked by the vague words of a fresh ex-con, a guy who stared at me like a creep. I ran away in the middle of the night, lied to my best friend, and barricaded myself in a 5-star hotel room, shaking like a terrified rabbit all night. Collateral. Lose your life. I let out a bitter laugh. Hunter. That little punk was probably just playing a sick joke. He probably hated me just as much as his mother did. Maybe he wanted to scare me, to make me run away so he could trash talk me to Tom. Or maybe he just wanted the house to himself to do God knows what. I thought about the $150,000 necklace in my bag. What if Hunter wanted me to flee so he could accuse me of stealing the jewelry and running away? Or maybe he just wanted to humiliate me and see me look pathetic. He knew I was scared of him, so he used it against me. Anger flared up, overpowering my exhaustion. I got played. I acted like a total idiot. I could not hide here forever. I had to go back. I had to face Hunter and demand answers, and I had to face Tom. I needed a serious conversation with him about that phone call last night, about this whole marriage. I refused to live like this anymore. I stood up, my legs trembling from sitting so long. I went to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. The woman in the mirror looked awful, dark circles under her eyes, pale skin, messy hair. But in those eyes, a new fire was burning. The fire of pure anger. I packed my few things, shoving the necklace back inside. I didn't even bother checking the room again. I pulled the heavy armchair away from the door and unlocked all the deadbolts. I walked out of room 1818, completely devoid of the fear I had when I arrived. I marched to the elevator, rode it to the lobby, and pushed through the revolving doors to breathe the crisp morning air. Everything was normal. Last night was just a bad dream. I hailed a cab. On the way back, I watched the bustling streets. People were rushing to work, kids were walking to school. Life was going on normally and peacefully. I was the only one sleepwalking, stepping out of some paranoid alternate reality. The closer I got, the stupider I felt. And the more I thought about it, the angrier I got at Hunter. I mentally prepared a barrage of furious questions for him. The cab pulled up to the estate gates. My heart beat a little faster, not out of fear, but from the adrenaline of a pending confrontation. I used my keys to open the gate, then the front door. I was ready for war. I stepped inside. The house was weirdly peaceful. It was not the terrifying silence of last night. It was a normal, domestic calm. The smell of breakfast wafted from the kitchen. I heard the sizzling of frying eggs and Eleanor humming an old jazz tune. I stood frozen in the foyer. Eleanor walked out of the kitchen holding a plate of eggs. Seeing me, she scowled, launching right into her usual routine. "Where have you been all night? Do you think this house is a cheap motel?" I was braced for a fight, but this sheer normalcy threw me off balance. I mumbled. I slept at Hannah's. Eleanor scoffed. "You could have at least left a note. Tom came home dead drunk at 5 a.m. He is passed out upstairs. Truly a mess. Go clean up his vomit in the hallway in a bit." Everything was painfully normal. Eleanor was still Eleanor. Tom was still Tom, drunk and careless. Her story perfectly matched his phone call from the night before. He got home at 5 a.m., meaning he really was just out drinking with clients all night. The house was spotless. Nothing was ransacked. Nothing was out of place. My head was spinning. Then what the hell was last night about? I looked around. "Where is Hunter?" I asked. Eleanor slammed the plate on the table, sounding irritated. "That delinquent? Who knows? He took off on his motorcycle at the crack of dawn, probably out causing trouble. What else can a convict do?" So Hunter had left. Of course. The prankster fled the scene after his joke worked. I stood in the living room, the warm morning sun beaming through the windows. I felt like an absolute clown. I had terrified myself, writing a thriller movie in my own head. Collateral. Death. Hunter probably heard some slang in prison and used it to scare his sister-in-law. I felt a mix of embarrassment, fury, and immense relief. At least everything was fine. Exhausted, I dropped my duffel bag containing the expensive necklace onto the sofa, planning to go upstairs, shower, and confront Tom once he sobered up. I had just placed my foot on the first stair tread when the doorbell rang, but it was not the usual elegant chime. It was a massive, violent pounding. Bang, bang, bang. The aggressive, rapid pounding sounded like someone was trying to break the heavy oak door off its hinges. Eleanor and I both jumped. Furious, Eleanor spun toward the foyer, yelling, "Who has no manners? Pounding on doors like a maniac at this hour." She marched over, grumbling. She probably thought it was a delivery driver or a solicitor. I held my breath, a sudden sense of dread washing over me. The relief I felt just moments ago, the belief that Hunter had pranked me, was instantly extinguished, replaced by a freezing chill racing down my spine. Before Eleanor could even turn the knob completely, the door was shoved open violently. 10 men in plain clothes, their faces dead serious, flooded into the house like a tidal wave. Dark jackets, tactical boots, eyes sharp and scanning. Eleanor stumbled backward, and I barely managed to run over and catch her arm to keep her from falling. "Who are you people? How dare you barge into my home?" She panicked, but still tried to maintain the haughty tone of a rich socialite. A tall man with a long scar across his face, clearly the leader, held up a badge. His voice was absolute steel, devoid of any emotion. "We are federal agents. DEA. Nobody move." I froze, my legs turning to jelly. The DEA? Why were federal agents swarming my house? Why were they in plain clothes? The lead agent glanced at me and Eleanor, then barked orders to his team. His voice clipped. "Fan out. Search everything." The agents instantly scattered. They moved with terrifying speed and precision. Some ran up the stairs, some secured the kitchen, others blocked the back doors. What are you doing? Do you have a warrant? Eleanor finally regained her composure and started screaming, trying to yank her arm out of my grip. Do you know whose house this is? My son is Thomas, CEO of a major development firm. The scarred agent barely glanced at her. He pulled out a folded piece of paper, his tone icy. This is an emergency federal search warrant for the residence of Thomas, suspected of involvement in a major narcotics trafficking operation. Cooperate or you will be restrained. Major narcotics operation, I muttered the words. The bizarre peace I felt earlier was just the eye of the hurricane. I watched the agents heading straight for the second floor, making a beeline for the master bedroom. My heart started beating erratically. The noise, the heavy boots stomping upstairs, furniture being shoved around, and Eleanor's hysterical screaming finally woke Tom up. I heard the master bedroom door swing open. Tom, wearing expensive silk pajamas, his hair a mess, his face puffy and red from alcohol, stumbled out to the landing. He groggily yelled, "What the hell is all this noise? People are trying to sleep." His words died in his throat when he looked down and saw a dozen federal agents tearing his luxury living room apart, and the lead agent staring right back up at him. Tom froze. I watched the drunken flush drain entirely from my husband's face, leaving him as pale as a ghost. The alcohol evaporated from his system instantly. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "Are you Thomas?" the lead agent asked. It was a rhetorical question. They clearly knew exactly who he was. Tom swallowed hard. I could hear the dry gulp from where I stood. He nodded mechanically. Yes. Yes, I am Tom. What? What is going on? His voice shook. He looked nothing like a powerful CEO anymore. The agent stared right into Tom's eyes, his gaze like a scalpel. "We suspect you of possession with intent to distribute a massive quantity of narcotics. You are ordered to cooperate." Narcotics? My ears rang. The word hit me like a sledgehammer. I stumbled and had to grab the back of the sofa to stay upright. Impossible. Tom, my husband, he could be careless, he could be cold, he could be a mama's boy but a drug dealer. That was a massive federal crime, something completely alien to our wealthy suburban reality. This was a mistake. It has to be a mistake. You have the wrong guy. Eleanor finally grasped what was happening. She shrieked, her voice cracking. My son is a CEO. He runs a legitimate business. He would never touch that garbage. You are framing him. I will sue all of you. She tried to lunge forward, but two young agents easily held her back. Tom said nothing. He just stood there trembling, his eyes wide with absolute horror. He did not even dare look at me or his mother. He just stared at the scarred agent as if looking at the Grim Reaper. The lead agent ignored Eleanor's screaming. Her resistance only made the room more tense. He signaled to the agents upstairs. Tear the master bedroom apart. Two more agents rushed up the stairs. They seemed to know exactly where they were going and exactly what they were looking for. They brushed past Tom, who was rooted to the landing like a statue. We were detained in the living room. Eleanor kept screaming and cursing. I slumped onto the sofa, my ears ringing so loudly I could not hear anything else. I only heard my own heartbeat. I heard tearing, mattresses being flipped, heavy drawers slamming upstairs in the master bedroom, the very room I was supposed to sleep in last night, the very room where Tom had passed out just a few hours ago after his meeting. Barely 5 minutes later, an agent came downstairs. He wasn't alone. In his hands, he carried a massive black garbage bag. Inside it were several vacuum-sealed bricks of white powder. He dropped the heavy bag onto our glass coffee table and reported to the leader. Sir, we found 5 pounds of pure cocaine hidden in a custom compartment under the master bed. 5 pounds. Under the bed. My mind detonated. Eleanor's eyes bulged as she stared at the bricks on the table. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Then her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed, fainting hard onto the carpet. I tried to rush to her, but my legs gave out completely. I had zero strength left. Thomas, you are under arrest. The lead agent pulled out his handcuffs. The cold metallic clack echoed in the dead silence of the room. Tom broke down completely. He dropped to his knees on the stairs, shaking violently. No, it is not mine. I do not know anything about it. I am innocent. I was framed. Someone set me up. I stared at Tom in handcuffs, then at Eleanor unconscious on the floor, and then, like a bolt of lightning, everything snapped into place. Hunter's words, "Do not come home, or you will lose your life." The room 1818 keycard. The necklace. Collateral. The feeling of being watched. I collapsed onto the floor, utterly paralyzed by fear. I finally understood everything. Hunter. Hunter did not lie to me. He was not playing a prank. He had saved my life. If I had not trusted him last night, if I had stayed in this house, if I had slept in that bed, the person in handcuffs right now would not just be Tom. It would be me, the wife, sleeping in a bed on top of 5 pounds of cocaine. I would have been arrested as an accomplice. No lawyer in the world could have saved me from a federal trafficking charge. The brief relief I felt 30 minutes ago turned into a glacial terror running down my spine. The agents dragged Tom away, ignoring his screams about being set up. They called an ambulance for Eleanor. She had not regained consciousness. The shock had simply broken her. The sprawling mansion, which had been peaceful with the smell of breakfast just 30 minutes prior, was now a disaster zone. Sofas were slashed open, drawers dumped, documents scattered everywhere. It was chaotic and filthy. I sat alone amidst the wreckage. I did not cry. I had no tears left. I only felt an intense emptiness and a chilling dread. My husband was a drug trafficker, or at least heavily involved in a cartel. The lavish life I lived, this mansion, my luxury car, all of it was built on dirty money. I sat there for I don't know how long, an hour. Maybe 2. Finally, the broken front door creaked open. I flinched, curling up out of instinct. It was Hunter. He walked in calmly. He was wearing the same dark jacket from yesterday, his face completely devoid of emotion, as if he had just returned from a morning jog. He glanced at the ruined living room, then at me shivering on the floor. His calm demeanor was terrifying. For a split second, I wondered if Eleanor was right. Did Hunter frame his own brother? He had just gotten out of prison, he resented Tom, and he knew how the drug game worked. Most importantly, he knew this was going to happen. Saving me could have just been a way to ensure I wasn't collateral damage, leaving him to claim the estate. But I quickly killed that thought. If Hunter did it, he would have vanished. Coming back meant this was not over. Hunter did not say a word. He walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, chugged it, and then turned to look me dead in the eyes. The wolf-like stalker gaze was gone. Instead, his eyes were deep, exhausted, and deadly serious. He did not ask where Tom or his mother were. He already knew. He just looked at me and spoke in a low rumble. "Val, get to the patio. We need to talk." Shaking, I grabbed the railing and hauled myself up, following his shadow out to the second-floor balcony. The house was destroyed. The scent of the agent's tobacco and pure despair still hung in the air. I did not know why I obeyed him. Maybe because after everything my husband arrested, my mother-in-law hospitalized this mysterious ex-con, the man I had feared, was the only anchor I had left to hold on to. Even if that anchor might drag me deeper into the abyss. The morning wind was biting on the balcony, whipping my messy hair around. Hunter walked to the edge and lit a cigarette. He took a deep drag and exhaled a thick cloud of smoke into the gray sky. I stood a few feet away, my hands clasped tightly together. You knew everything, didn't you?" My voice cracked, brittle and dry. Did you set Tom up? It was the question Eleanor had screamed, and it was my worst fear. If true, I had blindly followed the mastermind. Hunter turned to look at me. For the first time, I saw him smile a cynical, bitter smirk that was colder than the morning wind. "Set him up?" he scoffed. "Sister-in-law, you give me too much credit. If I had the skills to frame the golden boy with 5 pounds of product, hidden that perfectly, I would not have spent the last 2 years rotting in a federal penitentiary." I was stunned. 2 years? Did the family not say you only did a few months in county for a bar fight? Hunter took another drag, his eyes narrowing at the horizon. He seemed to be talking to himself more than to me. A bar fight. That was the convenient label Tom and Eleanor slapped on me to protect the reputation of this wealthy family. Eleanor didn't want to lose face at the country club, and Tom didn't want to spook his corporate partners. Then, why were you really in prison? I asked, my heart pounding. Hunter looked straight at me, his eyes stripping away the predator act to reveal a man who had suffered entirely too much. Narcotics. Trafficking. The exact same charge your husband got hit with this morning. My jaw dropped. I could not believe my ears. What kind of families could I married into? I was 19, Hunter continued. Stupid, wanting fast cash, wanting to prove I was better than my perfect older brother. I got involved with a crew doing low-level runs. Then one day, my boss told me he had a major job. He handed me a duffel bag, told me to drive it to a drop spot, and promised me $5,000 cash. Hunter's voice was flat, like he was narrating a movie. Like an idiot, I drove there smiling. The feds swarmed the car the second I parked. 10 pounds. I was set up. My boss used me as a fall guy so he could escape the heat. I took the plea deal. 2 years in federal prison. He gave a smile that made my chest ache. I sat in a cell for 2 years. I know exactly what being framed tastes like. I know the utter despair when no one believes you. I know what product hidden under a bed means. It is a death sentence with no way out. I finally understood. I looked at Hunter, no longer with fear, but with overwhelming pity. Then, the way you looked at me. Hunter crushed his cigarette out against the brick railing. I wasn't looking at you. I was looking at what was around your neck. He nodded at my chest. The $150,000 necklace. Rick's signature piece, I repeated, my throat dry. The anniversary gift. The first piece of serious luxury Tom had given me, the thing I wore with such pride, had a horrifying origin. Hunter leaned against the railing, crossing his arms. You never met Rick, did you? The guy operates entirely in the shadows. He only believes in two things: money and fear. He has a habit. He gifts his most vital associates incredibly expensive jewelry, like that necklace. Hunter's eyes sharpened. It is a gift, but it is also a marker. When Tom clasped that around your neck, he dragged you into the game. He used your physical safety, as a guarantee for whatever deal he was running with Rick. I stumbled. I remembered Tom's face 2 months ago when he put it on me. He had said, "Wear this. Never take it off. It is your lucky charm." A lucky charm? Or a leash? My heart physically hurt. He used his own wife as a hostage. But why? Why now? I asked, trembling. Why did he get arrested? Maybe Tom wanted out. Hunter shrugged. Or maybe he knew too much, or his usefulness ran out. Rick decided to cut ties and clean house. And the best, cleanest way to get rid of someone is to make them the fall guy for the feds. Just like he did to me 2 years ago. How did you know? I saw Bruno scoping out the estate 2 days ago, Hunter said, his voice dropping. Who is Bruno? Rick's cleaner. The guy who physically planted the stash in my car. Hunter clenched his fists. When I saw him, I knew Rick was making a move. I knew Tom was finished. And you, collateral like you, always gets buried with the target. I sank down onto the cold balcony floor. The truth was too brutal. Everything was shattered. But why did you save me? That was the biggest question. Why give me the keycard? You hate this family. Hunter stayed quiet for a long time. He looked out at the city waking up in the distance. I told you. When I got out, this whole house, including Tom, looked at me like I was a disease. A stain. Only you. He turned to me, his expression complex. I know you were scared of me, but that day, when I was eating alone in the kitchen, you walked by and put an extra piece of fried chicken on my plate. You said, "Eat up, you look too skinny." You didn't curse at me, you didn't shoo me away. You still treated me like a human being. I was stunned. I barely remembered that. It was such a small passing thought. I did not save Tom, Hunter said coldly. He made his bed. He chose this life. He has to pay for it. But I saved you. You are innocent. I wasn't going to let you get buried in his grave. Getting caught with 5 pounds of product under your bed. 100 lawyers couldn't save you. Minimum mandatory sentences. That is way too high a price to pay for a piece of chicken. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw genuine kindness in those dark eyes. He had saved my life. The brutal reality of federal prison kept flashing in my mind. I had been standing on a trapdoor to hell and didn't even know it. If it wasn't for Hunter, if it wasn't for that piece of chicken I barely remembered, where would I be right now? I shuddered, unable to finish the thought. I looked at Hunter, the brother-in-law I had feared so much, who was now my savior. "Thank you, Hunter," I whispered. He just nodded, his face turning stoic again. It seemed to him the debt was paid. The transaction was over. He turned to head back inside. "Wait!" I scrambled up, grabbing the sleeve of his jacket. "Hunter, please. Tom, yes, he is guilty of something, but he was framed for this stash, right? You know how Rick operates. Can you help him?" Hunter yanked his arm away, looking at me like I was insane. Help him? Why the hell would I help him? The guy who treated me like a disgrace? The guy who hid the truth about my setup and let me rot in federal lockup for 2 years? The venom in his voice was palpable. Just then, my phone vibrated. I panicked, nearly dropping it. It was an unknown number. I answered, my hands shaking. "Hello, is this Valerie?" A formal male voice spoke. "This is Attorney Lawson. I was retained by your mother-in-law, Eleanor, to handle Tom's arraignment." Is she awake?" I asked frantically. "She is still at the hospital, but she authorized me to represent Tom." "Valerie, I am calling to update you." The lawyer hesitated. "It is extremely bad. Tom is panicking. His statements are all over the place. He keeps insisting he was framed but cannot provide a single coherent explanation." My chest tightened. "Bad? How bad?" "Worse than we thought," Lawson sighed. "The DEA just executed a secondary search on Tom's home office. They found a digital scale and a massive stack of Ziploc baggies. Tom's fingerprints are all over them. My knees gave out. Fingerprints. Rick. He calculated everything. He didn't just plant the product. He planted the paraphernalia. Tom is a dead man, I whispered. Mr. Lawson, is there nothing we can do? I asked in absolute despair. Valerie, I need to be brutally honest with you, Lawson said heavily. In federal court, 5 pounds of product, paraphernalia with his prints on it, and frantic, inconsistent testimony, the chances of beating this are virtually zero. You and the family need to prepare for the absolute worst-case scenario. A federal indictment with decades in prison. I hung up, dropping the phone onto the balcony floor. It was over. It was truly over. Tom was going to federal prison for the rest of his life. I would be branded a cartel associate's wife. My family back home would be destroyed by the shame. I looked at Hunter, the only other person here, the only person who understood the full picture. He had heard the entire call. Hunter, you are our only hope. I broke down crying, dropping to my knees. Not for Tom. Please, do it for me. If he takes the fall for this, my life is ruined too. How will my parents ever show their faces? And your mother, Eleanor. I know she treated me horribly, but Tom is her golden boy. If he goes away for life, it will kill her. Hunter stood silently, his back to me. He stared down at the wrecked living room through the glass doors. I knew invoking Eleanor was a double-edged sword, but she was his only weakness. A long time passed. He finally let out a heavy sigh and crushed out a second cigarette. Fine. Consider this the final payment for that meal. Tell me, what do you need me to do? I wiped my tears, a fragile spark of hope igniting. You said you know how Rick sets people up. Do you know how to break his traps? Hunter turned around, his face deadly serious. The cynical, bitter ex-con was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating soldier. Rick is meticulous, Hunter analyzed. If he made a move, he swept the board clean. Physical evidence like Bruno lurking around or stray fingerprints are long gone. We cannot fight him in the light. Then what do we do? I asked, my voice quivering. We go into the lion's den, Hunter said, his eyes narrowing. The only evidence left is digital. It will be on Rick's personal computer or his phone. Encrypted messages, wire transfers, burner logs. He can delete them, but he cannot erase digital footprints entirely. I was horrified. Break into his office? Are you insane? That is a massive corporate tower in Manhattan. Security is everywhere. How do we even get in? Hunter smirked, a dangerous glint in his eye. I can't get in. Security would toss me out in 30 seconds. But you can. I pointed at myself, stunned. Yes. You are Valerie, Thomas's wife. Hunter started pacing, outlining the plan. You just suffered a massive shock. Your husband was wrongly arrested. You are losing your mind. You have to go to Rick's headquarters. Right now. He stared at me. You go in there crying, screaming, throwing a tantrum. You demand he give your husband back. You scream that Rick framed him. I panicked. You want me to cause a scene in a corporate lobby? Exactly. You need to draw all the aggro, Hunter said urgently. Security, the receptionists, even Rick's executive assistants. They all need to be focused on the crazy, hysterical wife. Make a massive scene. Throw yourself on the floor, kick, scream, whatever it takes. You have to buy me time. And you? What are you going to do? While you do that, Hunter's eyes calculated the angles. I take the service route. I will dress as an HVAC tech or delivery guy. I only need 10 minutes. 10 minutes to slip into his assistant's office. Guys like Rick never get their own hands dirty. They route everything through their right-hand man. The data will be on that assistant's hard drive. I am going to rip a copy of everything. The plan was incredibly reckless. No, I can't do that. I am terrified. I have never done anything like this. I stammered. Hunter suddenly lunged forward, grabbing both my shoulders and shaking me. He stared right into my eyes, growling. You are scared? You want to sit here and wait for Tom to get life in prison while you live with the shame forever? You want your parents hiding in their house? You want my mother to die in a hospital bed? He yelled, snapping me out of my panic. Valerie, we are out of options. His voice hardened. This is a Hail Mary. We either flip the board or we lose everything. Make a choice. I stared into Hunter's burning eyes. The fear was still there, but it was being overtaken by something else. Rage, desperation, and a final sliver of hope. I thought of Tom. Even though he lied to me, he was my husband. I thought of Eleanor in the hospital. I thought of my parents. I took a deep breath and wiped my face. I nodded, my voice so steady it surprised even me. Okay, I will do it. Hunter let go of my shoulders. The solid weight of his conviction grounded me. The plan is set. Get yourself ready. We leave in 30 minutes. He did not give me time to hesitate or let the fear creep back in. He vanished somewhere into the house and returned with a gray canvas HVAC uniform and a beat-up tool bag. I did not know where he got it. I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes swollen, my hair a mess. I told myself, you don't have to act, Val. Just be exactly who you are right now. The despair, the terror, the fury, it is all real. I splashed cold water on my face, not to wake up, but to look even more unhinged. I purposely tangled my hair. 30 minutes later, we took separate Ubers to Rick's corporate headquarters. It was a 30-story glass tower right in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. It was lavish, imposing, and completely soulless, just like how Rick was treating my family. I stood across the street, watching Hunter, disguised as an HVAC tech with a cap pulled low, casually stroll toward the loading dock and service entrance. My heart hammered against my ribs. My turn. I took a deep breath, feeling like I couldn't get enough oxygen. I remembered Tom. I remembered Eleanor lying in a hospital bed. I gripped my purse tightly and marched straight through the revolving glass doors into the main lobby. The atrium was massive, with polished marble floors that mirrored the ceiling. A pristine receptionist looked up and offered a practiced, corporate smile. "Ma'am, who are you here to see?" This was it. I inhaled deeply, and then I let it all go. I hurled my heavy purse onto the marble floor. The loud thud echoed through the hushed lobby. The receptionist gasped. 2 security guards stationed nearby instantly turned. I screamed, a shrill, piercing noise tearing from my own throat. "Rick! Give me my husband back! Rick! You bastard, you ruined him!" I charged toward the reception desk. The 2 guards rushed over to intercept me. "Ma'am, please calm down. You cannot yell in here." I thrashed wildly, clawing at the air. "Let me go. You are all in on it. You help him destroy people. He set my husband up. He is a drug lord." My screams bounced off the glass walls. People in the lobby stopped and stared, whispering. A few pulled out their phones to record. The receptionist, pale as a ghost, frantically grabbed her radio. "Ma'am, please, we are calling the police." "Call them! Call the cops!" I shrieked. And then I did something I never thought I was capable of. I threw myself onto the freezing marble floor, slamming my fists against the ground, wailing in absolute, hysterical agony. "Oh my God, is there no justice? My husband is innocent. Rick, come out here and face me. You are a murderer," I cried, snot and tears streaming down my face. I looked like a genuinely deranged woman. The 2 guards hesitated. They didn't want to use excessive force on a hysterical woman, especially with cameras rolling. They tried to lift me, but I went dead weight and kicked. Just then, the VIP elevator doors chimed open. A man in a tailored suit, clearly an executive assistant, stepped out with a hard scowl. "Mrs. Valerie, please. Let us discuss this calmly. Mr. Rick is in a board meeting." I recognized this guy. Hunter told me this was the target, the right-hand man. I had to pin him here. I scrambled off the floor and lunged, wrapping my arms around his expensive suit pants. You are Rick's assistant, aren't you? You know Tom is innocent. Please, tell Rick to save him. He set him up. I am begging you." I put on an Oscar-worthy tragedy, gripping him like a lifeline, refusing to let him step away. The assistant, whose name I later learned was Tyler, was clearly blindsided by this. He took a step back, maintaining a facade of professionalism, but raw annoyance bled through. "Valerie, get up. Tom's situation is a federal matter. It has nothing to do with this firm. If you keep causing a scene, we will have you removed by force." He signaled the guards, and this time they grabbed me harder, trying to peel me off him. I knew I had to buy time. I had to keep Tyler right here in the lobby. Hunter needed 10 minutes. How many minutes had passed? 3? 5? I didn't know. I just knew I had to keep going. I clung to his leg and screamed, "No! I am not leaving. It was Rick. He called my husband last night. He threatened him. I heard the whole thing. You are all criminals, a cartel." I was lying through my teeth, shouting whatever came to mind to provoke Tyler. And it worked. Hearing me scream that I heard the call, his face lost its color. He leaned down, hissing through his teeth so only I could hear. "What the hell are you talking about? Do you have proof?" "I do. I have recordings," I lied blindly. "Tom recorded everything. How you blackmailed him. How you threatened our family." Tyler froze for a split second. He was clearly trying to calculate if I was bluffing or if this crazy woman actually had leverage. He looked around, saw the growing crowd of onlookers with smartphones, and immediately pulled out his cell phone, stepping away to call someone, likely Rick or the head of security. Yeah, Tom's wife. Yeah, She is having a meltdown in the lobby. She claims she has audio recordings. Good job, Val, I told myself. Keep him pinned. I stopped screaming and just sat slumped on the floor, sobbing loudly, playing the part of a broken, desperate victim. You people are monsters. Give my husband his life back. Tyler hung up, looking at me with pure venom. Valerie, for the last time, walk out of here or we will drag you out. How long had it been? I glanced frantically at the wall clock. 8 minutes. I needed 2 more. What do I do? Just as I was about to launch into another screaming fit, the cell phone in my coat pocket vibrated once. A single, short pulse. That was the signal Hunter and I agreed on. A blank text message. It was done. He got it. I instantly shut up. The crying stopped completely. I slowly stood up, brushing the dirt off my knees, to the absolute bewilderment of Tyler and the security guards. I smoothed down my messy hair. I looked Tyler dead in the eyes. The hysterical madness was gone, replaced by a chilling calm. Fine. I will leave. I bent down, picked up my purse, and looked at the assistant. Do me a favor and tell your boss. This is far from over. I spoke clearly, enunciating every word, before turning my back and marching out the revolving doors, leaving a lobby full of stunned people wondering what on earth had just happened. I found out later what Hunter accomplished during those chaotic 10 minutes. Dressed as a maintenance worker, he took the freight elevator up to the 25th floor executive suites. Just as he predicted, my meltdown in the lobby had drawn all the security personnel and Tyler downstairs. He slipped right into Tyler's office. The door wasn't locked. The computer was on. Just asleep. Hunter jammed a USB drive in and ran a brute force decryption program he picked up from hackers in prison. It took 3 minutes to bypass the login. He then cloned the entire hard drive, including emails, chat logs, and everything sitting in the recycle bin. The remaining 7 minutes were just enough for him to walk out the service exit as calm as a ghost, right before Tyler returned to his desk. I practically ran out of that glass tower, my legs shaking violently. I felt like I had just sprinted out of a nightmare. I didn't dare look back. I walked fast, blending into the dense Manhattan crowd, trying to turn invisible. I was terrified Tyler would send security after me. I walked 2 full avenues before hailing a cab. I couldn't go back to the Long Island house. It was a federal crime scene. I couldn't go to the hospital to see Eleanor. Rick's people might be watching. Hunter had given me instructions. Meet at a rundown diner deep in Queens, a place no one would ever think to look. The cab drove through familiar streets that suddenly felt alien. I stared out the window, my anxiety peaking. Phase 1 worked. But what now? What if the USB was useless? What if Hunter got caught? I didn't even have a way to call him. What if he played me, took the evidence to blackmail Rick, and abandoned me? No. That look in his eyes when he talked about his 2 years in federal prison, that wasn't a lie. Just as my panic hit a boiling point, the bell above the diner door jingled. Hunter walked in. He had ditched the HVAC uniform and was wearing a plain black t-shirt and jeans. He scanned the diner, spotted me in the corner booth, and walked over. He slid into the seat across from me and calmly ordered a black coffee. Sister-in-law, he said, his voice flat. Not bad acting. I nearly burst into tears of relief. Are you okay? Did you get it? Hunter didn't answer. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a tiny black thumb drive, set it on the table, and slid it toward me. The spoils of war. His tone was deadpan, but I saw a dangerous spark ignite in his eyes. I stared at the little drive. Everything Tom's life, my family's honor, the absolute truth was trapped in that piece of plastic. Open it, I stammered. Hunter pulled a battered laptop out of his canvas bag. He booted it up and plugged the drive in. My heart pounded against my ribs. A folder popped up on the screen. He clicked it, revealing hundreds of subfolders and thousands of files. PDFs, offshore bank statements, Excel spreadsheets, and archived chat logs. It is too much. How do we find anything? I panicked. Check the trash, Hunter said, his fingers flying across the trackpad. Guys like Rick think hitting delete makes things disappear. They don't realize anyone with a brain can recover it. He ran a script, and deleted files populated the screen. And there we saw it. A folder labeled Project H. Hunter clicked it. There were no documents inside, just a single audio file. The title of the file made my breath hitch. Tom, final warning. My hand trembled as I reached out, almost wanting to stop him. I was terrified of hearing the truth, but Hunter didn't hesitate. He plugged cheap earbuds halfway into the jack so we could both hear it over the diner's ambient noise, and hit play. A sharp beep of a recorded call sounded. Then, a painfully familiar voice spoke filled with absolute terror and desperation. Rick, enough. I am out. I said I am out. I am not taking that shipment. Doing this will kill me. It will destroy my family. It was Tom, my husband. Immediately another voice answered. A voice I had never heard in person, but one that was deep, icy, and reeked of authority. The voice of a man used to being obeyed. Destroy you? Tom, you are hilarious. That was definitely Rick. Who do you think you are to tell me you are out? Do you think your hands are clean? The millions you have taken from me over the years, the mansion you live in, the cars you drive, do you think that money fell from the sky? I held my breath, covering my mouth with my hand. Tom yelled, his voice cracking. I thought we were just doing normal business. I thought we were just washing cash through the construction sites. I didn't know you were moving fentanyl. You lied to me. A sinister, chilling laugh echoed from Rick. Lied to you? You were greedy, Tom. You are a smart guy. Did you really think a 500% profit margin came from pouring concrete? You are waist deep in the mud. You can't climb out now. You belong to me, and you will do exactly what I say. I heard Tom gasping for air. Please, Rick, I am begging you. I cannot touch this stuff. I will pay you back. I will pay it all back. Just pretend I don't know anything. Please let me go. Too late, Rick cut him off, void of any humanity. You don't have a choice. You are taking this shipment. If you refuse, I will have my guys deliver it straight to your house. The DEA will find it right under your master bed. How does that sound? He paused for a second, his voice turning pure evil. Oh, and your wife, Valerie? Is she home? Pretty girl. And your aging mother? If they found out their golden boy, their pride and joy, was a cartel trafficker, I bet they would be absolutely devastated, wouldn't they? A loud thud sounded, like Tom punching a desk. Heavy, furious, but utterly helpless breathing followed. Then, the call disconnected. I sat there, paralyzed. The glow of the laptop illuminated my pale face. My ears were ringing. So this was the truth. Tom, my husband, wasn't completely innocent. He was an accomplice. He was greedy. He had knowingly engaged in money laundering for Rick. But he was a coward. He panicked when he realized the money came from narcotics. He wanted to back out. And Rick was even more ruthless than I imagined. He used me and Eleanor, Tom's own family, to blackmail him. He forced Tom to take the shipment, and it was clear Rick's plan all along was to use Tom as the fall guy to protect himself. I looked at Hunter. He sat in silence, but his fists were clenched so hard his knuckles were stark white. He ground his teeth together. That piece of shit brother of mine, he hissed. But Rick is even worse. He looked up at me, the mockery entirely gone from his eyes, replaced by a strange sense of shared trauma. Well, he said, now we have what we need. I sat frozen, staring at the screen. The diner noise faded into the background. All I could hear was Rick's sinister laugh and Tom's desperate begging. My husband was a money launderer. My mansion, my car, the $150,000 necklace. It was all bought with blood money. Nausea washed over me. I used to pity him. I thought he was framed entirely. But now, he just seemed pathetic. Crying didn't fix anything. Hunter's voice snapped me out of my dark spiral. He had already closed the audio file. This recording only proves he was coerced into taking the drugs. But the conspiracy and money laundering charges are still enough to put him away for decades. It is not enough. We need a kill shot. I looked at him, my eyes dry. A kill shot? Isn't this enough? No, Hunter said coldly. Rick is a fox. He will deny it. He will say the audio is a deepfake. He will blame his assistant. He has money and politicians on his payroll. We need something that will utterly destroy him. Something he cannot deny. Something he fears more than the FBI. Hunter plugged the USB back in. He ignored the audio files and started digging through the thousands of other documents. I watched his scarred fingers fly across the keyboard. Rick is careful, Hunter muttered. He routes his dirty cash through layers of shell companies. But he stopped at a heavily encrypted folder. That assistant Tyler really is a goldmine. He deleted the files but forgot to delete the password keychain. Hunter typed a few commands, and the folder popped open. It wasn't contracts. It was a massive ledger of offshore bank statements, wire transfers to Switzerland, to the Cayman Islands, and all the wires pointed to one single beneficiary name, Claire Sterling. Who is that? Hunter asked. He didn't need me to answer. I knew exactly who it was. Claire Sterling. Anyone who read Vogue or Forbes in this city knew that name. She was Rick's wife, but no one referred to her as Rick's wife. She was known as the Queen of Fashion, Claire Sterling, CEO and founder of the ultra-luxury brand Laura, a powerful, gorgeous, self-made woman who threw massive charity galas. I used to admire her. Hunter kept scrolling. He found a cache of backed up emails between Rick and Claire. "The money is wired," Rick wrote. "Wash it clean on your end. Don't let it trace back to me." Claire replied, "Don't worry. Just make sure none of your street dirt gets on my shoes. My reputation and my brand will not be ruined by your filthy side hustles." I shivered. She knew. She knew everything. She knew her husband's empire was built on cartel blood money. Hunter looked up at me, a terrifying light in his eyes. Bingo. Sister-in-law, he almost laughed. Rick isn't afraid of prison. He thinks his money can buy his way out. But he is terrified of her. He is terrified of his high society wife losing face. I stared at the screen. The emails between them were cold, transactional, calculating. They didn't sound like a married couple. They sounded like co-conspirators. She was the one laundering the dirty cash, spinning it into haute couture, lavish runway shows, and her pristine image as a female entrepreneur. Disgust churned in my stomach. I remembered her TV interviews, preaching about corporate ethics, female empowerment, and building genuine value. The value she built was paid for with Hunter's 2 years in prison, the destruction of my family, and likely the lives of countless others. This was the elite society Tom had sold his soul to join. Hunter read my mind. He pointed at an Excel spreadsheet. "Look, Laura's initial financial disclosures. A $2 million seed investment, wired directly from one of Rick's offshore shell companies. Her entire self-made empire is built on blood." Hunter closed the laptop and leaned back. The tension in his shoulders finally dropped, replaced by an icy, lethal calm. "Tom is a greedy idiot," he said. "But Rick and Claire, those two are the real monsters. They use blood money to buy prestige, and then use that prestige to hide their crimes and make more blood money." For the first time, Hunter and I shared the exact same emotion. Absolute, unadulterated rage. I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't scared. The heartbreak of my ruined marriage was buried under a much larger mission. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice terrifyingly calm. "The audio file saves Tom from a life sentence, but it doesn't take Rick down. He will blame Tyler, he will claim ignorance, and Claire remains untouchable." "No," Hunter shook his head. "Rick isn't afraid of the law because he buys the law, but he is afraid of Claire. And Claire," Hunter smirked, "she is afraid of losing her status more than she fears death. She lives for her title as the fashion queen. If her brand collapses, she collapses. And if she falls, Rick loses his anchor." I understood. We couldn't fight Rick head-on in a courtroom. We had to use the one weapon they both feared most, their public reputation. "Rick is busy dealing with the 5 pounds of product and trying to silence Tom," Hunter analyzed. "Claire is chilling in her penthouse prepping for New York Fashion Week. They have no idea we have this USB. The two of them have individual, fatal weak points." I looked at Hunter. The ex-con I had once avoided was now my only ally in a war. "You're right. We don't just save Tom, we tear them to the ground." Hunter nodded, his gaze unwavering. "Rick is distracted by the drugs. Claire is obsessed with her image. We hit them simultaneously." The air in the dingy diner felt heavy with the gravity of our insane plan. A simultaneous attack meant passing the point of no return. I looked at Hunter. My ingrained fear of him was still there, but logic dictated this was the only way. This was no longer just about saving Tom. This was about getting justice for myself and for Hunter's stolen years. "How do we do it?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Hunter looked at me, testing my resolve. "Are you ready to take this all the way? This isn't a game. Rick is capable of anything. He would kill to silence us. He already threatened you and my mother." I thought about the audio file. The way Rick casually weaponized my life and Eleanor's life. I thought of the 5 pounds of cocaine placed precisely beneath where I slept. The fear was still there, but the fury dwarfed it. I had already lost everything, my husband, my family, my reality. What else was there to lose? "I am ready," I said clearly. "I have nothing left. I just want them to pay." Hunter nodded, expecting that answer. He mapped out the strategy, his voice low, sharp, and tactical. Not like a thug, but like a general on a battlefield. "Here is the play. We execute a pincer movement. I will handle Rick." Hunter pointed to his chest. "I will use the final warning audio and the proof of Bruno planting the stash. I will let him know I have enough to bury him in federal court." "You're going to meet him?" I panicked. "That is suicide." "No," Hunter shook his head. "I will call him on an unregistered burner. I will give him a choice. Option A. He walks into the FBI field office, confesses to being the mastermind, and admits he coerced Tom. Option B." Hunter smiled coldly. I send this entire USB, including the files proving he laundered millions through Claire's fashion brand to the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and every rival cartel he has. He loses his freedom, and he loses his empire. I held my breath. That was a lethal threat. What about me? What do I do? You handle Claire, Hunter pointed at me. You are Tom's wife. She would never take your call. You have to be someone else, someone she fears. I realized what he meant. A journalist. Exactly. Hunter nodded. While I am threatening Rick with federal prison, you call Claire. You tell her you are an investigative journalist holding irrefutable proof that Laura was built on laundered cartel money. She is obsessed with her image. She will panic. Hunter painted the picture. Rick will be losing his mind over my threat, so he will call his wife. Claire will be having a meltdown over your threat. They won't trust each other. They will tear each other apart. And in the chaos, they will make a fatal mistake. The plan was incredibly dangerous, but perfectly calibrated to exploit their psychological flaws. I remembered the hysterical performance I pulled off in the lobby. I can do this. Hunter shut the laptop. Let's go. We need burner phones and a safe place to bunker down. We walked out of the diner into the afternoon sun. I no longer felt like a victim. Hunter and I, pushed into a corner, were becoming the hunters. We bought 2 cheap prepaid phones with cash at a bodega. We were ready for the final strike. We couldn't go back to Long Island, and the Grand Plaza was out of the question. The safest place was somewhere no one would look. Hunter took me to a seedy, pay-by-the-hour motel tucked away in an industrial park in Queens. The room was tiny, damp, and smelled like mildew, a stark contrast to the presidential suite last night. But oddly, sitting here next to Hunter, I felt much safer. As dusk fell, Hunter opened the laptop and reviewed the files one last time. He handed me a notepad and a pen. Write down your script. Keep it brief, professional, and devastating. Do not give her a second to argue. I sat on the edge of the lumpy bed and wrote out my lines. My heart hammered. I was about to confront Claire Sterling, the queen of fashion, even if only over the phone. My hand shook so badly, my handwriting was barely legible. Hunter popped his burner SIM into a cheap plastic phone. I go first, he said firmly. I will put it on speaker. He dialed Rick's private, personal cell number, a number only his inner circle possessed. It rang 3 times before someone picked up. A deep, freezing voice answered, exactly like the audio recording. Who is this? Hunter brought the phone close to his mouth. He took a deep breath, and his voice dropped low, raspy, and dripping with venom. Rick. Remember me? The kid you framed with 10 pounds of product at the Port Authority 2 years ago? Silence hung on the line for several seconds. I could vividly imagine the shock on Rick's face. Hunter, you're out? Hunter laughed coldly. I don't have much time, so listen close. I'm calling to let you know I have the final warning audio between you and my brother. I also have the logs proving you sent Bruno to plant the stash today. My brother is a greedy idiot, Hunter ground his teeth, but you are a dead man. What do you want? Rick's voice lost its cool composure, turning urgent. Money? Name your price. I can pay you. Hunter laughed out loud. You think 2 years in federal lockup has a price tag? You have 24 hours. Hunter's voice turned to steel. 1. You turn yourself in to the feds, confess to being the mastermind, and clear Tom of the trafficking charges. My brother is stupid, but he doesn't deserve a life sentence. 2. Hunter paused. If I don't see your face on the morning news by 7 a.m., this entire USB drive, including the ledgers proving you laundered millions through Claire's offshore accounts, goes straight to the New York Times and the DOJ. You choose. Hunter hung up. He didn't give Rick a fraction of a second to negotiate. He tossed the burner onto the bed and exhaled heavily. Halfway there, he looked at me. Your turn. Wait 10 minutes. Give him enough time to call his wife. My heart felt like it was going to explode out of my chest. Those 10 minutes felt like a decade. Finally, Hunter nodded. Do it. Shaking, I put my SIM card into my phone. I dialed the public corporate number for Laura headquarters. A sweet professional receptionist answered. Laura, how may I direct your call? I need to speak to Claire Sterling. I forced my voice into a flat, professional tone. I apologize, Miss Sterling is in meetings all day. Do you have an appointment? No, but tell her. I took a breath. That I am an investigative reporter with the Wall Street Journal. I am calling for a comment regarding the $2 million seed capital used to launch Laura. I have evidence it was wired from offshore shell companies connected to Rick's narcotics cartel. If she does not take this call, the story runs on the front page at 7 a.m. tomorrow. A soft click sounded. The receptionist had put me on hold. A minute later, the line clicked back, and a different voice spoke haughty, arrogant, and ice cold. Who is this? Who gave you the right to make these psychotic allegations? It was her, Claire Sterling. I gripped the phone tightly. Miss Sterling, I don't have much time. We are preparing a major expose on the origins of your brand. Specifically, how dirty cartel money was funneled through your Cayman accounts to fund your fashion empire. Shut up, she screamed, her elegant facade shattering instantly. You are slandering me. I will sue you into the ground. I will destroy your career. I waited for her to finish screaming, then spoke in a dead, cold tone. Miss Sterling, we have the Cayman bank ledgers. We have the audio files of Rick admitting to the laundering. We are not interested in lawsuits. The story drops at 7 a.m. tomorrow. I paused for a second, then delivered the final blow. Unless you can convince your husband to walk into a federal building and take full responsibility for the narcotics operation he pinned on Thomas. Have a good evening. I hung up. I didn't let her say another word. I dropped the phone on the bed, my entire body quaking. Hunter looked at me. Then, he nodded. Good job. After hanging up, Hunter and I sat completely still in that cheap motel room. We had pulled the batteries out of the burners and tossed them in the trash. We had done everything we could. 2 ticking time bombs had been planted. Now, all we could do was wait. It was a waiting game far more agonizing than my act in the hotel lobby. The air was so thick I could hear my own pulse and the ticking of a cheap wall clock. Hunter chain-smoked, lighting one cigarette off the end of another. His hands were trembling slightly too. If nothing happens by 7 a.m., I whispered, my voice hoarse, then I will send the USB. Hunter cut me off resolute. I will send it to everyone. If we go down, we drag them all to hell with us. We sat in silence waiting for a verdict. The damp, moldy room was suffocating, but I wouldn't leave. I was terrified, but I also felt a strange, deep bond with this ex-con brother-in-law I used to avoid. We were allies now, bound by a deadly secret and a common enemy. Later, pieced together from leaks to the press and rumors from their staff, I learned about the absolute hell that broke loose in Rick and Claire's Manhattan penthouse that night. Just as Hunter predicted, his phone call hit Rick like a freight train. The untouchable kingpin suddenly found himself hunted, and the hunter was the very fall guy he had thrown away years ago. Hunter possessed the one audio file Rick thought was secure. Rick immediately started screaming at his lieutenants, ordering them to scour the city for me and Hunter. But right as he was frantically trying to silence us, Claire, the queen of fashion, kicked his office door open. Her face was chalk white. She threw her cell phone at his head and screamed, "You ruined me, you stupid bastard. The Wall Street Journal. They know about the 2 million. My brand, my reputation, fix this right now." Hearing Claire scream about the seed money, Rick instantly put 2 and 2 together. Hunter and I had executed a synchronized strike. Rick glared at his hysterical wife, the affection gone, replaced by pure venom. Reputation? You care about your reputation? You spent my dirty money for a decade, and now you turn on me? They tore each other apart. A brutal, vicious fight. Rick realized Hunter held the evidence of Claire's money laundering. Claire realized Rick had left a fatal loose end that was about to destroy her life's work. They no longer trusted each other. They shifted the blame, screamed, and laid all their cards on the table. Claire shrieked, "I don't give a damn if Tom lives or dies. I don't give a damn who Hunter is. I only care about my brand. If that article drops at 7 a.m., I am dead. Do something. Silence them." Rick stared at his deranged wife. He knew Hunter and I had won. We had used Claire as our hostage. If Rick didn't surrender, Hunter would leak the files and Claire, Rick's Achilles heel, would be destroyed. And if Claire fell, Rick would lose his last remaining legitimate shield. He had used me to blackmail Tom, and now Hunter was using his wife to blackmail him. Karma. Just before dawn, Rick called his high-priced defense attorney. He had made his choice. Hunter and I didn't sleep a wink. We just sat in the dark. I didn't know what Hunter was thinking. Probably about his stolen years, or his brother's betrayal. I thought about Tom. I didn't love him anymore. That audio file had killed whatever was left. But I pitied him. A weak, greedy man caught between a shark like Rick and a manipulative mother like Eleanor. At 6:30 a.m., the tension was unbearable. Hunter opened his laptop and tethered it to his phone. He refreshed the major news sites. Nothing. 6:45 a.m. Still nothing. My heart raced. Did he call our bluff? Did they find us? 7 a.m. Exactly 7 a.m. Hunter gripped the mouse tightly. His finger hovered over the send button on an encrypted email containing the zipped file named Gift for Rick and Claire. At 7:05 a.m., Hunter's actual cell phone buzzed. An unknown number. Hunter answered on speakerphone. Attorney Lawson's exhausted voice came through. "Is this Hunter?" I am calling from the federal courthouse." Rick just turned himself in. Half an hour ago, he surrendered to the FBI. I broke down in tears. I didn't cry for Tom. I cried because it was finally over. I collapsed against the cheap motel table, sobbing, letting out all the terror and stress of the past few days. Hunter sat completely still. He didn't smile. He just slowly closed the laptop, leaned his head back, and closed his eyes. I saw his shoulders shaking, but he didn't cry. Perhaps revenge, once achieved, just leaves an overwhelming emptiness. 30 minutes later, the news exploded. We turned on the motel's ancient, static-filled TV. The breaking news ticker scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Breaking: real estate mogul Rick surrenders to FBI, confesses as mastermind in major narcotics ring, clears associate Thomas. The talking heads praised Rick's courage to take responsibility. He claimed that due to a business dispute, he framed Tom. He stated Tom was completely ignorant and acted under extreme duress. I understood it all later. Rick chose the smartest path. He took the drug charge, the exact charge he tried to pin on Tom. By doing so, he controlled the narrative, and crucially, he protected Claire. He sacrificed Tom a second time, this time to save his wife's empire, knowing Hunter still held the laundering files. He took one charge so Hunter wouldn't release the other. I looked at Hunter. He saved Tom. I said, still in disbelief. No. Hunter shook his head. He saved his wife. Tom just got lucky. He stood up. Let's go. I will take you to the hospital. You should be there when Eleanor wakes up. At the hospital, Eleanor had been moved to a standard room. She lay there, incredibly frail. Her perfectly styled hair was a rat's nest. She looked like she had aged 10 years overnight. Seeing me, she weakly grabbed my hand. Val. Tom, is my son okay? I took a breath, keeping my voice steady. Eleanor, don't worry. Rick turned himself in. He confessed to being the mastermind. He told the FBI Tom was framed and coerced. Tom is going to get a plea deal. I expected her to sigh in relief, to thank me. Instead, Eleanor's eyes went wide. She squeezed my hand, her voice a venomous hiss. It was Hunter. You and him. What did you do? Did he frame his brother? Tell me the truth. I was speechless. Even now, she refused to believe her golden child could do wrong. She just wanted to blame Hunter. I gently pried her fingers off my wrist, my heart turning to ice. Eleanor, get some rest. A federal judge will decide if your son is guilty or not, but you should know one thing. I looked her dead in the eye. The person who saved my life, and the only reason Tom isn't facing a life sentence right now, is Hunter. A few months later, Rick's trial took place. It was a closed federal hearing, but the media frenzy was massive. I attended as Tom's soon-to-be ex-wife and a witness. I sat in the back row, quietly observing. Rick stood before the judge. He had lost weight, his gray hair had turned completely white, and his arrogant aura was gone. He was just a tired old man accepting his fate. His assistant, Tyler, stood nearby, looking pale and terrified. Claire was not there. I found out that right after Rick surrendered, she flew to Europe for medical reasons, abandoning her chaotic fashion empire and the husband who sacrificed himself to save it. Then I saw Tom. He was in a beige prison jumpsuit, his head shaved. As the marshals led him in, he glanced around the room and locked eyes with me. He froze for a second, then dropped his head, unable to look at me again. I saw his shoulders shaking. The hearing moved quickly because Rick had pled guilty. He admitted to organizing the trafficking, to using Bruno, who had fled the country to plant the drugs, and to threatening the lives of me and Eleanor to force Tom's compliance. The final warning audio was submitted as ironclad proof of Tom's coercion. When it was Tom's turn, he broke down weeping. He admitted he was wrong. He admitted his greed led him to launder money for Rick's construction projects. He cried, apologizing to me, apologizing to his family. He said he regretted being a coward and not going to the authorities sooner. I sat there listening, feeling absolutely nothing. Those tears were probably genuine, but they were far too late. They couldn't erase the fact that he had used me as collateral. The federal judge delivered the sentences. The gavel echoed in the quiet courtroom. Rick received a life sentence without the possibility of parole for federal drug trafficking and conspiracy to commit murder. Tyler received 15 years as an accessory. The judge looked at Tom. Thomas, you are guilty of conspiracy to commit money laundering and misprision of a felony. However, noting the extreme coercion, threats to your family, and your eventual cooperation, this court sentences you to 7 years in a federal penitentiary. 7 years. Compared to a life sentence, it was an incredible act of mercy. Tom didn't react. He just closed his eyes, accepting the price of his greed and cowardice. I walked out of the federal courthouse. The bright afternoon sun made me squint. It was truly over. A criminal empire had fallen, and a marriage had died. I felt empty, not with the joy of a victor, but with the profound exhaustion of a survivor walking out of a hurricane. Hunter was standing across the street, leaning against his beat-up pickup truck, smoking. He hadn't gone inside. Seeing me, he flicked the cigarette away. "Done?" he asked, his voice calm. "Done." I nodded, walking over. 7 years, huh? Hunter asked, as if he already knew. I looked at him, surprised. "You guessed it?" Hunter smirked. "It's the cheapest price he could pay for being a greedy idiot. Rick got life, but at least he saved his wife. My brother." Hunter gave a bitter laugh, lost 7 years of freedom, lost his wife, and lost his family. In the end, he is the biggest loser of them all. I didn't know what to say. Hunter was right. In this chess game, Tom lost the most, all because of his greed. A few months later, when the dust finally settled, I found the time to visit Tom at the Federal Correctional Facility. I didn't go as a wife. I went to finalize things once and for all. We sat facing each other through a thick pane of plexiglass. Tom looked different. He wore the standard khaki uniform. He was thinner, but the panic in his eyes was gone, replaced by a strange, hollow peace. He looked at me, and for the first time in years, I saw genuine remorse. "You came," he rasped through the intercom. "I didn't think you would ever want to see my face again. How is Mom?" That was his first question. "She is in an assisted living facility in Connecticut," I replied calmly. "She has 24/7 care. She is doing better than she was at the house. The doctors say she just needs time." Tom nodded, looking down. "Thank you." I took a deep breath. I pulled a prepared stack of papers from my bag, placed it in the sliding tray, and pushed it through to his side. "I came here today to give you this. I have thought about it a lot." Tom wasn't surprised. He looked at the divorce papers. He seemed to have expected it. He slowly picked up the pen and looked at the signature line. "I understand," he said, his voice choking up. He looked up at me, his eyes red. "Val, I am so sorry. I know it is too late for words. I let the money blind me. I don't deserve you. Don't apologize to me." I shook my head, my heart feeling incredibly light. The anger and hatred had vanished along with Rick's sentencing. "Apologize to yourself. 7 years isn't forever, but it is a long time. Do your time, Tom." He gripped the pen with a trembling hand and signed his name. The handwriting wasn't the confident scrawl of a CEO anymore. It was jagged and weak. It was over. As I stood up to leave, Tom called out, "Val, can you ever forgive me?" I paused, but I didn't turn around. "I forgive you, but I can never come back." I walked out of the prison. The massive Long Island estate, filled with suffocating memories, had been seized by the feds and foreclosed by the bank to pay off Tom's illicit debts. I didn't want it anyway. I moved into a small, modest apartment in Queens and went back to the accounting career I had abandoned when I got married. I visited Eleanor at the nursing home. The shock of losing her son, even temporarily, and the collapse of her social standing had triggered a mild stroke. Her mind wandered now. She sat in a wheelchair by the window, looking out at the gardens. Sometimes she recognized me, grabbing my hand and crying, "Val, save my son, please." Other times she looked at me blankly. "Who are you? Have you seen Tom? He is on a business trip. He should be home soon." She never once asked about Hunter. It was as if, in her mind, her second son never existed. I would just sit quietly, peeling an apple for her, feeling a wave of pity. In the end, she was just a tragic mother destroyed by her own blind arrogance. Before Hunter left New York for good, we met one last time at Rusty's Diner. He looked different. The dark, brooding aura was gone. He had a clean haircut and wore a bright flannel shirt. He told me he was moving to the West Coast to start over. "I'm going to learn a trade. Mechanics, maybe trucking. Just live a normal life." "You deserve that," I smiled. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. He turned to me. "Thank you for the fried chicken that day." I laughed softly. "Thank you for saving my life. And I am sorry." "Sorry for what?" Hunter looked surprised. "Sorry that I used to be so terrified of you." Hunter looked at me, and then he smiled, a real, genuine smile. The first one I had ever seen. "I'm heading out. Take care of yourself, Val." "You too, Hunter." He stood up and walked out. The lonely, shadowed figure I once knew now looked grounded, walking steadily into the afternoon sun. I walked home alone. The sun was setting, and the city lights were just coming on. I had lost a marriage and a life of extreme luxury, but I had found myself. I was no longer Val, the CEO's wife. I was no longer Val, Eleanor's daughter-in-law. I was just Valerie. I took a deep breath of the crisp evening air. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years, I felt entirely free.